I'm Wendy Makkena, and you're listening to You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
I'm Ann.
And I'm Damien. And if this is the first time you're listening to us, this is our little show where we, pop culture aficionados, who are also best friends, kind of shoot the shit, or we do shoot the shit, and invite a character actress along for the ride. And let me tell you, this week, it's going to get wild.
So if you're new to listening to the show, welcome. It's so good to have you. Like Damien was saying, we used to do this in person with an actress where we would travel to her house or she would travel to us. Now we're doing it online on Zoom with an actress with whatever level of technology they have available. It differs person to person, but we love hearing from you. So if you have a name of an actress that you're excited about that you want us to talk to, you know, we get these emails all the time. Just this week, we got an email from Bailey. Bailey, thank you so much for sending us a note. She sent a long note about queer baiting, which you know I love to talk about anytime shows are queer baiting for their audience. And I also learned about the shipping in Law and Order between Alexandra Cabot and Olivia Benson called Cabenson. So I like learning these new things because that was not on my radar. Also, she suggested Mary Stuart Masterson, which is somebody we have been after since the beginning of the podcast. So we will keep trying for her. We will get you MSM Bailey. Thank you for your note. And if you want to send us a note, you can email us, you can DM us, you know where to find us. We love hearing from you.
This week, our guest played a famous nun in an iconic, or I should say two iconic films. And it really got me thinking about like the 90s and Catholicism and like nuns and priests in pop culture because, you know, we've talked here to Eileen Davidson, who played a nun as one of the many siblings on a soap opera. Mm-hmm. You know, there was a mystery show that my grandparents and my parents used to watch called Father Downing Mysteries with the dad from Happy Days and a woman who kind of looks like...
Tom Bosley?
Yeah, Tom Bosley and a woman who looks like Marlene Matlin, but I forget her name. And it was called Father Downing Mysteries, and it was about a priest and a nun who solved mysteries, and it was like a big hit, I think. And then I was
thinking, it like on PAX?
No, it was on like CBS or ABC.
Oh, interesting.
And then
it would now be on CBS All Access.
Right. And then I was thinking about Nuns on the Run, that movie in like the late 80s or early 90s, which was like, I think about men on the run who like basically did the Whoopi Goldberg and Sister Act and like hid in habits. And then I was thinking about Nunsense, the musical.
Nunsense was so popular.
Yeah, every community theater did Nunsense. Yeah. And then I was thinking about Touched by an Angel and like Della Reese and Roma Downey like being...
Were they nuns?
They were angels. They were like spiritual angels.
You're just talking about like
Catholicism.
Adjacent Catholicism in pop culture. Yeah.
But it's just like, it's wild to me the way that like nuns, priests, and like all of this spiritual, to me, very Catholic stuff permeated pop culture in such a big way from like late 80s through the 90s. What did you ever think of that?
I mean, I don't know that I ever thought of it specifically. I mean, I'm very drawn to nuns. I have a complicated relationship. My mother was a nun, which I don't know if I've said that on the show before, but my mother was a nun and my father was studying to be a priest. They obviously both did not follow through with that plan. I love The Sound of Music. It's like one of the most important films to me. Sadly, not the musical. The stage show does very little for me, but I love the film. I love Sally Field as the flying nun. I don't know if there's other nun movies for me, surely. I've never seen The Trouble with Angels starring Hayley Mills, who I love. Hayley Mills, who's like the one person I saw in New York City who made me like speechless. I could not go over and talk to her. I literally stood in the corner, I put my hands on my head and like did the let's get together dance, and I had a panic attack. Anyway, The Trouble with Angels is a blind spot that my partner loves that she says is very important to her. So I feel like this week maybe I'll finally watch The Trouble with Angels. But I think it's cinematic. I mean, it's like Agnes of God.
Doubt.
Oh my God, Doubt. Yeah, of course, Doubt. I feel like nuns are very much a part of like, they're embedded in me, even though I didn't go to Catholic school and I was not raised Catholic.
Yeah, I don't know. It is interesting. I think that there's something like, I think that it's like funny that it's all of this family fare around the Catholic Church, and it's like nuns are a safe space for like women to get to do like antics and be zany because there's like they're not sexual at all. They're not mothers, but they're maternal because they're like do-gooders. And it's like, I'm not mad at it. I just think it's interesting. And as a person who did grow up very Catholic, going to Catholic school, had nuns, I don't know. I don't know how. I remember it was like people did it. The lip sync. They did like a song from Sister Act. Like these boys did a song as like the nuns from Sister Act, and like all of the parents were like ate it up at CYO lip sync. You know.
I bet they brought the house down. There's nothing that lip sync audiences love more than a man in a dress at a like a high school. It's so sad.
Yeah,
People
unless you're like a
just eat it
faggot,
up.
then they don't really like it. You know what I mean? They only like it if you're like the football team.
It's like,
dresses
oh,
up.
you're the captain of the soccer team and you put on a little fucking baby doll dress. Hilarious.
Yeah, like when you're too good at being in the dress and heels, then they're like, well,
This is unsettling.
You're emasculating.
I hear you. I feel like I've been fascinated by nuns my entire life, but also I grew up with my mom's stories of the convent and like really disliking it. But there were parts of it that she liked, the camaraderie. She told me about like secret lesbianism in the convent. She loved the singing. They roller skated. They played basketball in full habits. They didn't get to take any medicine or like they had to wear the old period belts, so like they couldn't take any medicine when they had period cramps
they
or
couldn't
headaches.
like Motrin or have like a tampon or a heating pad or anything.
It was very interesting. So anyway, I grew up with all of these stories, but so let's get into it this week because our guest, as discussed, is famous nun from the 90s, Wendy Makkena, who of course starred as Sister Mary Robert in Sister Act 1 and 2. And the reveals from this episode, I'm just going to leave it at that. The reveals that come out, for me, were earth-shattering.
You might know her from Sister Act 1 and 2,
Oliver Beene,
Camp Nowhere,
Air Bud,
Serving in Silence,
and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. We are beyond delighted to be here with actress Wendy Makkena. Wendy, welcome to You Might Know Her From.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, we're going to dive right in because we love the work of actor-director Mariel Heller, who directed Can You Ever Forgive Me? Because she always seems to employ a bevy of wonderful character actresses. So we were thrilled when we saw you pop up in her 2019 film A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood as Chris Cooper's new wife. I loved, first of all, that your character wasn't antagonistic towards the man's children, whom you had never met or heard of, but rather she was desperate to get him to reconcile with his kids before he died. Mm-hmm. Was the nuance of your character, who also happened to be dolled up in like a zebra print shirt, was that in the screenplay, or did you end up fleshing that out once you were on set?
There's always a little fleshing out that goes on, but I think largely, from what I recall at the audition, I remember her being described perhaps as blousy, and I'm not really blousy. So I did pad myself quite a bit.
Okay.
When I was in the waiting room, I noticed that there were more blousy than not blousy women. So I went into a bathroom and I padded everything I had. I did bring along a zebra top, so perhaps there was that description. When we got to the set, the costume designer, and forgive me, costume designer, I cannot remember his name right now, but he's a genius. He had the most amazing clothes for her, and that helped. And then, of course, hair and makeup helps. It's always a group effort. So it wasn't really my idea, no.
Are you an actor who works sort of outside in? Is that sort of stuff that really helps feed you? The outfits, the shoes, the wig, fake teeth, any of that?
I am totally outside an actor. I'm so glad you used that term. The right pair of underwear can actually make the character come to me. Yeah. So hair and makeup and clothes are everything. And moreover, accents and everything else. Yeah.
You know, Mariel's also an actor, and this project had such a specific tone. What was unique about her set and her process? Like, is she an actor's director?
She was a dream. I felt like I died and gone to heaven. Perhaps that's because she had acted, and of course now she's in Queen's Gambit. Mm-hmm. I believe she hadn't acted in 10 years before she did Queen's Gambit. First of all, the way you run the set can tell you a lot. She had eyes on everybody and everything. So if there was a problem over here, it could have been craft services, it could have been anything. She was sort of on it. She was very communicative and gave incredibly good notes. I was really nervous when I was on that set, and that was the first time I had walked onto a set with any kind of butterflies, honestly, in my life. in part that was because I had not worked in a while and was going through some personal stuff. And there I was in a room with Tom Hanks and Matthew Rhys and Susan Watson and all that. And I was like, what am I doing here? Do I belong here? She kind of noticed that without saying, hey, I see you're nervous. But I could tell she was shepherding me a bit and really patient with me, which I really needed to get through that first week. Her notes were on the money every time. But mostly I was interested in watching her work with everyone else. I fell in love with Marielle Heller. She's my girl crush.
Wendy, you're maybe best known for Sister Act and its sequel, Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit. The movies, as far as we're concerned, are regarded as comedy classics, and your role as the shy Sister Mary Robert delivering her notes at the end of the first film is iconic. Was the audition process for that film grueling? And, while you were filming it, were you able to think, like, this might be something special?
How long do you have? What happened was I had stopped acting after, by the time I auditioned for that, I maybe had been acting about 10 years. And the reason that I gave it up was I was tired of hearing this. She's really, really pretty, but she's not pretty enough to be the leading lady, but she's not weird enough to be the best friend. And I was constantly falling through the cracks and losing jobs because of that, but getting great feedback. So I got really frustrated and I needed to take a break. My agent, after 3 months of promising not to call me, couldn't help himself. He called me and he said, look, this is a part that you won't fall between the cracks because it's a nun. So it's not like, you don't have to have an amazing body and they just want someone who's kind of mousy maybe and who sings. And I said, okay, great. So I went to this audition. Scott Rudin was there. I didn't know who Scott Rudin was. But when I finished the Daisy Clock scene and I left, I was waiting at the elevators and he came running out and he said, that was so lovely. Oh, I said, thank you. He said, can you sing? And I said, well, yeah. And he said, great. My agent called that night, said, you have a call back, you have to sing. And I said, great, I'll bring my guitar. And he said, no, you can't bring your guitar, you have to sing. And I went, what, sing? He goes, yeah, sing. I said, but I don't sing. And he said, you're going to have to. And I said, no. He goes, yeah, you have to they want you to do a girl group song. They want you to do something by the Supremes specifically. And I was like, well, I can't do the Supremes on my guitar. He goes, no guitar. He goes, no guitar. You have to bring the music. You have to give it to the accompanist. You have to sing. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. No. And he said, you can't embarrass me. You have to go. So I had a roommate at the time who said, well, let's get out our cassettes. That dates it. Let's get out our cassettes. And I had some Supremes. And we started listening to the songs. And we were joking about how Diana Ross always starts out the songs talking like, the day you left me, I didn't know what I was going to do. But then you walked into the door and and it starts.
Yeah.
And so we were just doing takeoffs and just having dinner. And then I said, you know what? Why don't I just go and do a takeoff? Instead of taking myself seriously as a singer, because I can't, I'm going to do a takeoff of Diana Ross. And my roommate goes, better yet, why don't you bring in some Supremes? And I said, I'm going to do that. I picked up the phone. I called a playwright. I called Richard Greenberg, a playwright friend of mine. I said, Richard, I know you love gospel singers. Do you know any gospel singers? He said, yeah. He gave me a list of 10 names. I called them. The first 3 said they wanted to do it. I paid them $75 each. I promised them I'd get their 8x10s into Johnson Lift, the casting people. They showed up. These 3 glorious, beautiful Black women dressed to the nines. I said, wear sequins, just look gorgeous. And we had only one rehearsal. We had only 2 hours to rehearse it. And I thought, what am I doing? This is crazy. I've never brought anybody in with me to an audition, but I had quit. So why not? And so we decided to do Please, Mr. Postman. And the direction I gave them was this: drown me out.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? I said, just drown me out. I don't want anybody to hear me. They were like, okay. So then we decided, well, if we're going to do that, why don't we make up a story? Let's have a story. How are they going to get into the room? Because if they walked into the audition room with me, everybody would have been like, what are you doing here? You can't do this. This is her audition. And they would have dismissed them. So we decided to do this. I gave the music to the accompanist. This is what happened on the day. The gals were in the ladies' room outside the audition room, waiting for my whistle. Okay.
Oh my God.
So I give the music to the accompanist, and I said, okay, so we're going to start out a cappella. I'm going to be talking to the postman. I'm going to be asking the postman if there's any word from my boyfriend. And when he sort of says no, I'm going to act as if he says no and that he's really, not very nice. I'm going to get frustrated. I'm going to go like that. And these 3 women are going to come through the door. And he said, what? I said, yeah, there's 3 women outside there right now. They're in the ladies' room. They're going to hear me whistle. He goes, wait a minute. Now, meanwhile, Scott Rudin and I think Carrie Fisher was there. Like Hollywood is there. Hollywood is sitting at a table waiting for me and this accompanist to stop, John. And he goes, so you have backup singers? And I go, yeah. And he says, it's your funeral.
Oh my God.
And that was the first time I started to get nervous. Now, I had my duffel bag with me and I had a little cassette player and it was recording. Because I had a feeling this was either going to go over really, really well or I would never work again. So it's recording and you can hear me going like this. What? Because he was so... right? And so now I'm really nervous. So I get up, I take my spot, I start to, there must be some word today from my boyfriend so far away. And I was so nervous that my vibrato was at an all-time high. And they started giggling. And I thought, well, what are they laughing at? Because I haven't done anything funny yet. Okay. So, but they were giggling, they said later, because they just thought, oh, this is so Sister Mary Robert. She's so scared. Which I was. And then when the postman doesn't respond, I whistle, and there they were, right on cue, my 3 ladies, and they came running into the room, and one of them yelled out, we'll talk to that postman, honey. We'll talk to him. Then the piano starts going da 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 da, and the music takes off, and they start singing. Scott Rudin is like, you could see their mouths hanging open. Everybody in the room, there are like 20 people at this table. Their mouths are hanging open. We are now off and running, and you can't hear me. I can't hear myself because their voices were so amazing, and the place erupted. It erupted in a way that I'll never forget. Scott Rudin was on the floor, hitting his hand on the floor on his stomach. He was laughing so hard. And I had them shuffle out singing, you gotta wait a minute. And they left the room. And it took a while. I love this tape. You can hear the laughter going on and on and on and on. And I was laughing too. And I was so glad it was over. And Scott Rudin got up and he said, what the hell possessed you, Wendy Makkena? And I said, well, Scott, remember when you came out to the elevator and you asked me if I sang? He said, yes. I said, do you remember what I said? He said, I do. You said yes. I said, well, I lied. And that made everybody sort of laugh again. And I said, well, thank you very much, everybody. It's nice to meet you guys. And I went to gather my duffel bag to leave. And Scott said, oh, no, you're not leaving this room. That was amazing. You're staying right here. And I said, but I'm not going to sing the way you need me to sing, you guys. I'm a folk singer. I light rock. I have a really nice voice, but it's not that voice. And he said, well, let's find out. And I went beet red. And I said, please, don't make me stay. And can you imagine? Everybody was like really intrigued by that. So they made me stay and sing Where the Boys Are. When I finished, he said, you know what? That was not half bad. That was really, you have a lovely voice. I said, thank you very much. Can I go now? And they let me go. My agent called, said they loved you, but they need someone with a stronger voice. I said, yeah, okay, great. A month later, they came back and had me back in the room. A month after that, back in the room again. A couple of weeks after that. And every time they kept trying to get me to sing. And finally, at the last callback, I think it was 3 months later.
Jeez.
And they were doing a worldwide search for Sister Mary Robert. They wanted someone who could act and sing and be cute and all that stuff. And I said to them, during these 3 months, I could have been taking singing lessons. And I probably might have been able to sing the way you wanted me to sing. And they said, yeah, well, Now we want you to get on a plane, go out and meet Mark Shaman in LA and see if you can lip sync. I'm like, what? He said, if you can lip sync, you have the job. I'm like, what? It was just what? So I packed my bags. They flew me first class. I'd never flown first class in my life. They flew me first class out to LA. I went to Mark Shaman's beautiful home. He gave me a very difficult gospel song with a lot of riffs in it. Gorgeous song that didn't end up in the movie, called Come Holy Ghost. And he said, you have 20 minutes to learn the first 3 bars, but you have to look like you're singing and you have to lip sync really well. I said, I don't think I'll be able to lip sync unless I sing out loud. He said, no, you have to just lip sync it. I said, okay. Went into the room, came outside, did it for him. And he was amazing. He picked up the phone in front of me. He said, hold on one second. I have to make a call. And I thought, oh, I didn't get it. And right in front of me, he said to whoever it was, he said, so can you please bring a limo to bring Miss Makkena to the rehearsal room? And I was like, oh my God. I thought he was going to say to the airport and bring her home. So I went right to the rehearsal room, and that's how I got the job.
Right.
But the best part of the story, you guys, is this. After about 2 weeks of rehearsing with everybody and singing out loud, by the way, while they were looking for the person who was going to be my voice, they were still auditioning people. Jimmy Vivino, who was the associate musical director and another amazing human being, and I think Mark Shaman was there too, came into the room just to sort of see how we were doing with this new song. And they stopped the rehearsal and they said, Wendy, what are you doing? And I said, oh, you guys, I'm so sorry. I'm ruining everything, aren't I? I mean, because I was singing way out loud with everybody, because why not? And they said, no. Why didn't you do that at the auditions? I said, do what? They said, sing like that. I said, because I was nervous and now I'm not. They said, okay, so you're now going to audition for your own voice.
Oh my God.
They're putting you they put you through the paces. This is really a lot.
It was good. It was so fun. I have to say, it was so fun. They took me to a studio in Hollywood and they said, what the, excuse my French, F do you need to sing like you just sang? What do you need? And I said, I need a bottle of red wine and I need you to put a black flat up on the plexiglass there. I don't want you to see me. They were like, whatever you need. They went and got me wine. I think I slugged half that bottle, put on my headphones and said, I'm ready. They piped in the music to Come Holy Ghost. I sang. When I was done, the black flat came down and they looked at me and somebody was holding up their middle finger. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, why didn't you do this? If we knew you could do that, you're just a little tight at the top, right? If we knew you could do that, we would have given you singing lessons. I said, guys, I tried to tell you that, but I didn't know I could do this, but okay. And they said, okay, so now what's going to happen is this. We found someone for your voice, we think. Now we're going to mix you. You're going to do this live. And I could not have been happier. I was so excited that I was now not going to have to lip sync without making any noise. So they mixed us. Part of it is a mix between me and Andrea Robinson. Anything that is amazing is Andrea Robinson. And some of it is all me, the simpler stuff. And the high A at the beginning of the movie is all me.
The A with attitude.
A with attitude, exactly. So that's what happened.
That is wild. Was it like you and a handful of people orbiting it for like 3 months? Or was it like they were just like trying to find people and they kept bringing you back in?
They kept trying to find people and then they would go. They said what they ultimately said was, there was an article in in the Sunday Times about 2 weeks after that audition, the original audition, talking about that audition. It was Paul Rudnick, and he was writing an article. Somebody had asked him a question, who are your favorite actors? And he said, actors that do this stuff. And he described my audition. All my friends were calling me going, this is your audition he's talking about here. Scott Rudin said that they never could forget me because of that audition, because of what I did and the guts it took, I guess. And so when they would find somebody that they liked that could sing, they still had me stuck in their craw, as I think is what he said. And so they would still go, well, let's see Wendy one more time and see if she's relaxed enough to sing before we hire this other person.
They gave you like a glass of red wine before each singing take.
Exactly. And that's the story of Sister Act.
It's incredible.
It's a good story.
So as just mentioned, the first film is written by Paul Rudnick under a pseudonym, but it was also script doctored by Robert Harling, Nancy Myers, and allegedly Carrie Fisher, whom Whoopi had hired to rewrite some of her dialogue.
Yeah.
When you showed up to set, like, did you have a completed script when you got there, or were you getting it sort of in piecemeal because of these rewrites? Because as I rewatched it to prepare for this, I was like, this reads as like a totally like complete piece to me. But hearing about all of the doctoring, I really was curious what the actors got.
The rumor was that there was a lot of doctoring. As I recall from Sister Act 1, from my part, I can only speak for my part, what was doctored for me was my character went from, they decided they wanted her to be the straight person, but originally I was hired to be really super funny, and Whoopi and I worked out some really great funny things. Then a few days before principal shooting was to begin, Disney called me in and said, we just want to let you know that we want Sister Mary Robert to be very earnest and very straight and not funny. And I was devastated. So a few of my funny lines changed after that. I think that mostly what Carrie did was for Whoopi. It was very funny, and I think Whoopi was, I shouldn't speak for her, but I recall that Whoopi was greatly relieved. But in Sister Act 2, there was a lot of doctoring going on the fly, in the moment. I remember somebody once said, why don't we just cut up the script, put it in a hat, and have everybody pick a piece? That's I don't know why that happened, but I have to say that was greatly exaggerated. The doctoring that went on was important because you get on set and you have people like Whoopi and Maggie Smith and Kathy and Jimmy and Bernard. There were so many heavy hitters and incredible talents that when for whatever reason, the script was not as developed, I guess, as it could have been. I loved what they gave me, but I did see there were a lot of, little side meetings going on, but ultimately it came out so wonderfully, right? Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful script, and those kids, those young adults, if you will, were just extraordinary. And it was a great experience. Both of those films were, I would say, my glory days. They were so just fun. And Whoopi Goldberg is a dream come true. She makes sure everybody's okay. That everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has the right place to sit. Everybody has the food they need. If there's a special diet, she'll make sure somebody goes and gets it. That everybody's being treated the right way. She is just an extraordinary human being. Mm.
Well, that cast, as you mentioned, is stacked with brilliant, funny women. What can you tell us about working with one of my all-time faves, Mary Wickes, who I would say is one of the greatest people to ever play a curmudgeon on screen?
Yes, she is. Oh my gosh, Mary was unforgettable. She used to say, I just have these little snippets of memories where she would say, right before the cameras would roll, she would, can I say this? She would say,
yeah, you can say anything.
I'm ready for my blowjob, Mr. DeMille.
What? Oh my God. I didn't expect that. That's not what I expected to come out of your mouth.
Instead of saying, I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille, she'd say, I'm ready for my... And then she would laugh to herself. Everybody would turn and look at her like, did you just say that? And she'd go, that's what we say. It's what we say on the set.
Oh, I love her so much.
She's like, that's old Hollywood. That's old Hollywood.
That's old Hollywood for you. And sometimes everybody was having so much fun, and we were so mischievous. Mary Wickes was just as mischievous as everybody else. She would like pinch you before, she would like grab your butt right before you had to do a take, and she'd go, now try it that way. Try it that way, missus. Like, okay.
Missus.
We were in tears most of the time.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it translates. The chemistry that you all had was so charming and so wonderful. I think it's a perfect film.
It's a perfect film. And it was a perfect cast. Yeah.
Okay, so Wendy, Whoopi has confirmed as of like December of 2020 that she is signed on for a third movie for Disney Plus. What can you tell us? Are you definitely involved? Are you allowed to tell us anything here?
I can't say too much. That's not because I'm being secretive. That's because I really don't know too much. We know that everybody's coming back. When I say everybody, it's everybody that I know that you guys think of when you think of the movie Sister Act, right?
Does this include Maggie Smith?
I do not know, but wouldn't it be sad if it did? But I do not know. God, I hope so.
We'll pipe her in. We'll pipe her in from England if we have to.
Get a green screen.
Exactly. It was just such a terrific, unexpected pairing of all these different styles of acting, ages. And Maggie, can I tell you what Maggie said to me once?
Please.
Yeah.
I just remember this. There was a scene where I have to run into the church and I'm out of breath because Whoopi and I were just kidnapped and they rolled me out of the car and I run back to the convent. And here I am, an actress who still has really had very little training. And I thought, well, okay, I'll just be out of breath. I'll do a gazillion jumping jacks and then they'll yell action. So I went to Emil Arnolino and I said, okay, I'm going to be doing jumping jacks. So can you let me do 60 jumping jacks before you yell action? And he said, sure. And Maggie is in the church waiting for me to run up to her and say, oh my gosh, Dolores was just kidnapped, right? And she's supposed to be reading a Bible very quietly, right? And so I did my 60 jumping jacks and they said, action. And I run into the church and I say my lines and I'm really out of breath. And they go, cut. And they go, back to 1, Wendy. And I go, okay, great. I do another 60 jumping jacks. We must have done 9 takes. And after 9 takes, you can imagine doing all those jumping jacks to get myself out of breath. I was exhausted. And Maggie just kept looking at me funny every time they would yell cut. She would look me up and down. And she would say, are you all right? And I would say, no, I'm good. I'm fine. Okay, we're back to 1. Here we go. And finally, when they yelled cut again, and I was literally on my knees going like that, she looks down at me and she says, Wendy. I said, what? And she goes, why don't you just try acting? It's like, what? She goes, you American actors, always trying to wear yourselves thin, gaining weight, losing weight. Why don't you act? And I said, good note, Maggie. Okay. All right. Okay. And the next take, I didn't do any jumping jacks. And Emil goes, you finally got it.
Oh my God.
And I went up to Maggie and I said, good note. Thanks, Maggie.
Okay, first of all, that's the best Maggie Smith I've ever heard in my life. And second of all, I feel like, isn't that the same thing? Like Laurence Olivier said the same thing to Dustin Hoffman, who was running around before Marathon Man. So I feel like it's somewhere in their bones that they must impart this on American actors.
They just think we're just so silly.
Oh, God, that was good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Wendy, I was thrilled to be reminded that you appeared as lesbian lawyer Mary Newcomb in the 1995 TV movie Serving in Silence, the Margarethe Cammermeyer Story. You play the real-life woman who helped build Colonel Cammermeyer's case when she sued the Army after being discharged for being a lesbian. Mm-hmm. This movie was very important to me as a young closeted lesbian. Do you know that this movie is lesbian canon?
No.
It is. You're part of lesbian canon history. It's
kidding.
It's an important lesbian film. It was a big deal that Glenn Close and Judy Davis did this movie.
I had no idea. It's funny. I was just thinking about that the other day. I don't know why, because I don't often think about that particular project that I did. But I was thinking about it not just 3 days ago, wondering if they were ever going to play it again somewhere at some point.
Well, I just bought it, so now I own it, and it was great to revisit. So your scenes are primarily with Glenn and Judy, 2 women that we both adore here. Yeah. Were either of them super method on set, and which one of them do you think played a more convincing lesbian?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a lesbian, so I can't tell you.
Yes, but I'm giving you carte blanche here to tell me, in your estimation, as a lesbian, I'm giving you free reign to tell us which one you think was more convincing.
Well, I'm not a lesbian, but I play one on TV.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know. Well, that's a loaded question. Who's the more convincing lesbian? I have no idea. But I'll tell you something. I was such a huge Judy Davis fan at the time that I could not keep my eyes off of her. So I might have become a lesbian by that point.
I hear you. There's a lot of lesbian energy coming from Judy Davis. I don't know what it is, but lesbians love Judy Davis too.
God, she's so good.
She's incredible.
She was method. I mean, she was in it at all times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
She's in her body as an actor.
And she makes huge choices, just enormous choices on film, which I
I
love.
love that you said that. Yes, she does. And it's one of those things where you go, as you're watching a choice unfold in a moment, let's say in a beat, you're watching this, like you go, wow, she's really going for it. Wow, that's going to, wow. And you think, no,
Yeah.
don't go there. Oh no, it's not going to be good. And then save. It's like,
Yeah.
saves it. And it's exciting. The other actor that does that is, what's his name from Rocky Horror?
Tim Curry?
Tim Curry does that.
Yes.
He makes these choices that are like, you go, oh no, that's so not going to work. That's so not going to work. Oh no. And you put your hand over your eyes and then you go, he did it. It's like
Yeah.
watching
I love
a
that.
sporting event.
It's sort of on the heels of this. I mean, heels on it because we are queer people and love queer art. You also appear in the 1998 indie film Finding North with John Benjamin Hickey. You play a depressed woman turning 30 who accompanies her friend whose partner just died from AIDS on a road trip, which like turns into a scavenger hunt based on this cassette tape that his partner left him. So
Yeah.
we were so excited to find this title. But first of all, like, can you help us get a copy? Because it's not streaming anywhere. It was very sad that we could not find it. So that's question one. And question two is, do you feel with these types of credits and like, Sister Act, like, do you feel any sort of kinship with the LGBTQ community?
Yes, I do, actually. Yeah, I mean, I feel a kinship. No, I mean, I'm supportive, all for it, but I don't feel any kind of kinship with it, meaning there's nothing personal in my life, right? But I remember Out magazine after I did. Do you remember Out magazine?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
I don't think they're any longer.
I think there's still out.com.
Oh,
I think
really?
out.com still
Interesting.
exists.
Well, after Sister Act 1, one of the choices I made as an actor, when Disney, remember I told you that Disney said you need to be straight? And I thought to myself, well, how am I, the straight guy, I thought to myself, how am I going to then justify how obsessed I sort of am with Dolores in the movie? And then I thought, well, maybe there's an attraction. Maybe.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, blowing our
Wow.
minds.
wow,
We both
Wendy.
just looked at each other in the Zoom like, oh, wow.
This is huge. This is huge.
Wait, so you guys.
Like, okay, it's coming to me why I was so drawn to Sister Mary Robert. It's all making sense now because that scene in the bedroom
With the
and out of bed, you
daisy, the alarm
sleepyhead,
clock, yeah.
it's like there is something really intimate and sweet between the two of them, and I had never articulated it. You just said it for me.
Oh, well, I'll tell you something. I have to be very careful because Sister Act 3 is being made. And I certainly don't.
Disney's gonna shut that shit
It's
down.
going to shut. Well, not because it's controversial, but because it's sort of like so many people love Sister Mary Robert, and she is such a lovable character. I don't want to ruin anyone's experience of it by telling anybody my acting process. But part of my acting process was this, and I'm going to be as careful as I can, which was that it occurred to me that possibly Sister Mary Robert was drawn to Dolores unconsciously, subconsciously.
Yeah.
That there was some kind of attraction that not even Sister Mary Robert would have been, given how very innocent she was, aware of. And I didn't think that, and nobody certainly noticed it on set. It was just an internal little secret that I used as an actor. Actors we have our hacks. And it wasn't until the movie came out and the reviews were so lovely, and for the most part, I think I got nice reviews, until somebody called me and they said, oh my gosh, Out magazine says that how come nobody has noticed the sexual tension between Dolores and Sister Mary Robert? And I remember thinking, oh my God, they picked up on it.
Amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. I feel like it's a very personal thing, but I can't tell you that something just lit up inside my brain.
I'm so glad. I'm so
Wow.
glad. But it wasn't like I made the choice that this was what it was about. But I just thought, just a skosh of that, right?
Yeah, and it adds stakes to the
It
scene.
adds stakes, and every actor needs to have a secret. Every actor needs to have a little secret that they don't tell anybody about their character.
Well, you just told us, so
I
sorry.
told you it's out.
Okay, Wendy, you also played all the Way Mae in the 1993 TV series A League of Their Own. Penny Marshall directed the pilot, and the show quickly sets up the whole thing. Dottie's return to the Rockford Peaches and all the major characters from the movie. So John Lovitz, Gary Marshall, Tracy Reiner, and Megan Cavanaugh reprised their roles. Was this an exciting gig to land, or was it daunting to play a role made famous by Madonna in the movie?
Not daunting for me. I was thrilled to get it because after Sister Act happened, I got very stereotyped. And so the fact that Penny Marshall actually deigned to see me. She didn't originally want to see me for All the Way Mae. She wanted to see me for the blonde who cries a lot.
Evelyn.
Yeah.
And I said to my agent, "Oh no, another weepy, cryy, shy person." And my agent said, just go to the audition. I was like, okay. And I did. And I read, and Penny Marshall, God bless her. I don't know why. I should have asked her. It's too late now, but I don't know why she said this. She said, do you have any chicken cutlets with you? And I said, yeah, it's pilot season. I have my chicken cutlets in my bag. She goes, I want you to go to the bathroom and put in your chicken cutlets. And then I want you to put on a lot of makeup and fluff up your hair. And I said, okay. She goes, because there's something very sexual about you. And I think that you should read for All the Way Mae.
I can't.
Oh my God. Wendy. Penny Marshall sees the sexuality in everyone. I love it.
So I did. And I got you had to play ball, by the way. I'm a baseball fanatic, okay?
Oh, okay.
So and I played ball. I was in the not like, but I was on the Broadway show league, but I like baseball, not softball. So in my spare time, I was always finding a field, and I was always finding a bunch of people to play a game. And I have a really amazing arm. And so when they said you have to play ball and you have to look like All the Way Mae, I could not have been happier.
That's so cool.
So we had to audition on the ball field, and I was given second base, and I caught a line drive, and and Penny came up to me and she goes, "It's yours." And I was like, "Look, Penny!" So we broke the mold of the Sister Mary Robert mold, because suddenly I was wearing torpedo tits, and they dyed my hair red. And yeah, so that was super fun.
I was very into it. I was honestly skeptical going in, and then I really enjoyed the pilot. But let me tell you, Wendy, I got to episode 2, which involved Jimmy Dugan bringing a chimpanzee named Beene to the team to become the mascot of some sort. Then Dottie hits a line drive and knocks the chimp into a coma. And I said, how did this turn so quickly? How did this veer so far off path? Can you tell us how you felt when this script arrived for episode 2? Because I was excited and I thought, wow, this went in another direction.
Here's what happened in the dressing room when we got the script, right? It was like, okay, here's the new script. Table read is tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. And we looked at each other and we went, it's all over. They brought in a monkey. And it's only episode 2 or 3, and the monkey's here, and we're done.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
The writing was on the wall. They didn't need to. The setup was good. They actually did a nice job with it. And I'm really sorry, because it was very cool to see you play against what we knew as your type at that point. You were very good. And I wanted that to succeed.
Do you know who directed that episode with the monkey?
No. Who did the second episode?
Tom Hanks.
What?
Yep.
How did he sign off on the chimp?
Tom Hanks, Penny wanted to bring in another director. She directed all of them, and she was at Tom's side the whole time. I guess Tom hadn't directed yet, maybe. But Tom Hanks showed up on the set, and we were like, oh my God. And he was wonderful, and he was just as concerned about the monkey as we were.
Right.
He was like, okay, guys, it's the monkey. We're going to do the monkey show.
When you showed up for that group scene in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Tom Hanks, were you like, hey, you remember Benny the chimp?
I did. Actually, I think he did. I think he went, you look familiar. And I said, Benny the chimp. And he went, no.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, Wendy, we are now moving to the part of the show. This is our rapid fire section. This means that theoretically we are wrapping up here, and we're throwing a whole lot at you, which you've seen a lot already. So we're just going to fire it away. You can take your time as you need it, but it's rapid fire for us.
Oh, God. Okay.
Wendy, you had an 8-episode arc on one of our favorite shows, Judging Amy. You star as Susie, Maxine's new supervisor at the social worker's office. This, of course, means you went toe-to-toe with Tyne Daly on a number of occasions. What kind of scene partner was Tyne on set, and did she impart any bits of procedural wisdom on you?
I had a newborn baby at the time. I'd literally just given birth when I got that job. And all the wisdom she imparted was all about the baby, and I could not have been happier or luckier.
Wendy, your first film role was in 8 Men Out, a movie about baseball starring 1,000 men. It has you reading the newspaper aloud to your husband in both of your scenes. How do you prepare for that type of role?
I went and threw up in the bathroom because I was so nervous. And then I came out, took a deep breath, and stayed as still as the director wanted me to be, and was so glad I got through it. I had no idea what I was doing.
We were pleased to learn that in 2013 you started your own business, Ruby's Rockets, a line of natural fruit and veggie pops that were, by the way, always stocked at my in-laws' house on the Upper West Side.
I love it.
They're also sold in 4,000 stores nationwide. Are you still in the business of Ruby's Rockets, and can you please get them placed in Uptown Manhattan?
Oh, you and me both would love them to be placed back. Yes, I'm still in the business of Ruby's Rockets. I sold my controlling shares. I'm still the founder of the company.
Okay.
But someone else is CEO. I was the CEO and COO, and soup to nuts built it. And it's the most proud I've ever been of anything I've ever done. I never set out to be a food maven at all, but it just happened that way. And the pause button has been hit. So if you go on the website right now, what you'll see is sold out, sold out, sold out. And that's sort of code for we need an angel investor, and we're looking for another angel investor right now. Mm-hmm. I'm not involved in the everyday, in the weeds of it, but we are coming back.
Okay, great.
And you will be back on the Upper West Side.
Great.
Okay, Wendy, it seems like you and Jason Alexander broke character a lot while filming the sitcom Listen Up. What is it like when that happens in front of a live studio audience? And would you say that's the show that you broke most on?
That's the show. The show I broke most on was Oliver Beene, which I think of all the shows I've ever done, that was my favorite. Oliver Beene, we went for only one season. And same with Listen Up, but of course Listen Up because it was Jason Alexander. It was more high profile. But yeah, what's it like to break up? Well, on Listen Up, because it was a live audience, it was pretty fun. I have a tendency to lose it a lot, which is why I got kicked out of acting school. So once I go, it's really hard for me to write myself. And Jason didn't make it any easier because he encouraged it. And I couldn't look at him when I would lose it. I think on my website, there's a little clip from a gag reel that Listen Up had given me as a gift. Yeah, it was great fun.
So let's talk about Oliver Beene, because it's the Fox sitcom where you play a homemaker mother was it just one season or was it 2 seasons?
It took us 2 years to shoot one season because they kept pausing
Got it.
But it was one season ultimately, yeah.
So the show was set in 1962 and then in 63. What was it like to take on the sitcom material, but in a period piece?
Oh, I loved it because we were exploring things, and that was pretty much my mother was a 60s mom, so I used her a lot. And it was a Jewish family, and I come from a Jewish family. So I loved the set. I loved how colorful everything was. And what I enjoyed was playing a woman. Mrs. Beene was a vibrant, strong woman who was not allowed to be vibrant and strong. I liked playing that. I liked getting in touch a little bit with her anger. She was written so beautifully. And so I really enjoyed exploring that time period.
Okay, Wendy, you played Eva Longoria's destitute widow friend on an episode of Desperate Housewives. Stories continue to come out about the drama on that set. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being totally healthy and 10 being totally toxic, what was the vibe on that set for you?
1 to 10 being healthy, 10 being not. Oh boy, on the set for me, I'd say it was 1. There was no toxicity at all.
Yeah, it's because you had Longoria. You were in the Longoria camp, but you had the...
Yes. I didn't have to deal... my scenes were only with Eva, and she was very nice, and I didn't notice any problems.
Okay, great.
Great.
Okay, so Wendy, go with me on this journey. Last night I started Camp Nowhere, and at first I was like, oh my God, this is so rude. They're not giving her anything to do. Anne gave me edibles for my birthday. I never take edibles, but I ate a little edible. I took a shower. I came back to the movie. I was so stoned. I finished it. I was quite moved by this scene where you and Christopher Lloyd are talking about why he stopped teaching. You're like, why did you stop teaching? And he was like, I used to know, and I thought I could change. And I was very moved by it. Were you all giving some nuanced scene work there, or was it just the marijuana, speaking to me?
Well, I would have to take some edibles and watch the scene to really answer your question. So why don't you send some over?
Got you.
We'll pop that in a brown paper bag.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, Wendy,
Yeah.
your mom was a well-known astrologer, Diana K. Rosenberg, and Wendy, you are a Libra. My middle name is Libra. I'm a Libra, identify strongly as one. Can you tell me what is the most Libra thing about you?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'd say my Martha Stewart side, maybe. My Martha Stewart side and the sense of justice. I think that I love beautiful surroundings. It's the most important. My home is the most important thing to me, and beautiful surroundings. That doesn't mean like I have to be in a mansion. I mean, could be a little shack, but I'm going to make it look really
Yeah.
super nice. How about you?
Aesthetically, I feel like my most Libra traits are very clearly my indecisiveness and my people pleasingness. That I identify very strongly with what I consider not negative, but challenging qualities of my Libradom. I always feel like that speaks to me.
The indecisiveness is hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Libra middle name. Wow.
Yeah. Wendy Makkena, thank you so much for joining us on You Might Know Her From. This has been truly a trip. You really gave us a lot of joy here today, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys are such great interviewers. I really appreciate it.
There have been a few moments on this show that take my breath away, and I will just tell you that was not a lie. What you heard when Wendy Makkena revealed that her actor's motivation for Sister Mary Robert in that out-of-bed Daisy Head scene was that she was feeling something for Dolores. I mean, it shook me to my core because I'm not even exaggerating. It opened something back up in my 10-year-old, 11-year-old brain when I saw it. That obviously was like it's like shots of Sister Mary Robert adoring Dolores, and it somehow like transposed onto me all of those feelings that you kind of don't know what to do with as a kid, where I was like in love with my student teacher or like my basketball coach or whatever it was, where it's like you're kind of like into this woman who is wiser and more knowledgeable and cooler than you, and you are just longing to sort of like, you don't really know what to do with it. But anyway, I feel like Wendy Makkena killed it, and the idea that she told us this however many years later, like what is that, 30 years later almost, that for me is the icing on the cake. Like Sister Mary Robert had like gay motivation. Come on.
It's beyond. Also, just like the whole audition story from Sister Act, the Mary Wicks intel, the Maggie Smith impersonation, the Penny Marshall impersonation, all of the League of Their Own. I mean, there were just so many, I have lost, and it's not an exaggeration or acting, but I have lost my breath on this show like 175 times. And this episode, there was a lot just in that alone, but it was these constant reveals.
Folks, if you're a new listener, if you're an old listener, if you're a medium-time listener, you know what you can do to help us keep going. We love hearing from you, but the best thing that you can do is to leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app. Those are the things that get us in other people's ears. It boosts our picture, it boosts our algorithm, so that we have the potential to be in more people's headphones. We'll take 4 or 5 stars. If it's lower than that, why don't you just send us a DM? We don't need to see that in writing on Apple, but you can leave the name of an actress. You can say like more lesbian content. You can say more body talk. We haven't done much body talk this season so far. Who knows? My body is aching like a motherfucker. I haven't even mentioned it. Let us know what you like. Let us know how you're feeling about the show. And if you can be so kind, please leave us a review on the Apple Podcast app.
We've been doing this thing this season where we've been connecting this week's guest to our next week's guest. We love a blind item, so I think we've now have somehow baked blind items into the podcast. So, Anne, do you want to tell our listeners how we're going to connect Wendy Makkena to next week's mystery guest? Tell me, because I don't know yet.
I would love to, Damien. Okay, so Wendy Makkena, this week's guest, was in Sister Act with Kathy Najimy, who was, of course, in Hocus Pocus with Bette Midler, which, sidebar, you tell us, Damien, sidebar.
Bette Midler was the person that was originally attached for Sister Act. It was, like, written for her.
So Bette Midler was in The Glorias, which stars Julianne Moore as Gloria Steinem, and Bette Midler starred as Bella Abzug with next week's guest.
Folks, won't you do us the great favor of following us on social media? You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on all the things at Damien Bellino. And you can follow Anne. Anne, where can they find you?
At Rhodaman. That's my last name with my first name mixed in. RODEMANNE. might know her from is produced by us, Ann Rodeman and Damian Bellino. These two best friends in front of your ear hole. Canals, drums. What is the hair in your ear called? Cilia? I don't think that's it. But, I'm very into ears having hair.
We want to thank, as always, our incredible consultants at Grumpy Entertainment. That's Jason Jude Hill and Daniel Sears, and all that crystal clear, squeaky clean for your ear holes and your cilia. Editing is by the great and wonderful and lovely Daniel Sears.
Cilia might be what's in your nose. I honestly didn't look it up. And of course, always, a thank you to Gang. Their music underscores each and every one of our episodes. You can stream Gang's music on iTunes or wherever you listen to your music. Okay, one of the things that blew my mind was the dub talking with Wendy Makkena, that like Andrea Robinson was like her voice, but like also blended with her voice. And then I was thinking like, who would I want to blend with my voice? So like it sounded like me when I was singing like this, and I can hold a tune well enough. But then when I have to hit a note that's high, I get blended with somebody else. And I'm not sure who would match my voice well enough. Do you have a vision?
For you?
Well, for me or you, I just feel like I would be very into...
I think Stucker Channing would be yours.
She can't sing better than me.